Friends, today's movie recap is going to be full of mystery and shocking twists. In today's story we'll see love, betrayal, dark family secrets, and a murder that turns a perfect wedding into a nightmare. Our movie is the perfect couple, Arsène Lingard-Seath. The story begins on the luxurious island of Nantucket, where Amelia Sachs is about to marry Benji Winbury, the son of a powerful and super-rich family. Everything looks perfect: the mansion, the guests, the happiness. But behind all the glamour, every member of the Winbury family hides a dark secret. The night before the wedding, disaster strikes when a dead body washes up on the beach. The victim is Merritt Monaco, Amelia's best friend and bridesmaid. Detective Nikki Henry starts investigating and soon realizes that everyone in the house has something to hide. It's revealed that Merritt was having an affair with Tag Winsbury, Benji's father, and she was pregnant with his child. The truth threatens to destroy the family's image and the upcoming wedding. In the shocking climax, we learn that Greer Winbury, Benji's mother, killed Merritt to protect her family and stop the scandal from going public. What started as a dreamy wedding turns into a web of lies, greed, and murder, proving that no couple is ever truly perfect. So friends, get ready for secrets, suspense, and betrayal, because this perfect couple hides an imperfect truth. So let's begin. Benji Winbury is set to marry the love of his life the next day, and as the family gathers for the pre-wedding celebration, Greer Winbury, the matriarch, is busy making sure everything is perfect. She welcomes Isabel, who has chosen to stay in a private lodge instead of the Winbury family house, then hands her over to Thomas Winbury to look after. Their exchange is warm, almost flirtatious. The groom's parents, openly affectionate, assure the couple that if their marriage is half as lucky as theirs, they'll be happy for life. They seal it with a kiss, while Benji and his bride-to-be, Amelia, wish everyone a happy wedding eve and profess their love. Sudden screams by the riverside shatter the moment. A distress call reaches Deputy Carl, reporting a body washed ashore. On edge, he alerts Chief Dan, who then informs Chloe about the tragedy and that her catering job is cancelled along with the wedding. After Dan leaves, Chloe quietly folds away a cloth with red stains and scrolls through her phone, lost in thought. At the crime scene, the Winbury estate, Chief Dan questions Roger, the wedding planner, who claims he arrived early and discovered the body. Detective Nikki from the DA's office soon arrives, and though tension sparks between her and Dan, the crowd eventually disperses. Everyone from the wedding eve party is called in for questioning. Roger's answers stand out, hinting that the Winbury fortune is a get-out-of-jail-free card. When it's Amelia's turn, she's in her wedding dress, crying and shaken. The detective presses her on the gown and the cut on her leg, but she can barely respond until Chief Dan steps in to calm her. It's morning, and Amelia wakes to a loving note from Benji. A ladybug on the bed startles her, and when she steps outside, she runs into Greer. Greer asks why she isn't wearing the family robe, but Amelia only smiles, leaving Greer mildly unsettled. Back in the interrogation room, Gozia and Isabel remark that Greer's control extends to all her sons, who seem afraid of her, making it easy for her to dominate. During rehearsal dinner prep, the family shares light banter in the kitchen until Tag walks in, touchy with his wife, drawing comments from the kids to tone it down, at least for Will, who's still smarting from being dumped by Daphne. At interrogation, Gosia gushes about Tag, while Abby points out that Gosia clearly has a thing for him. Even Roger and Isabel admit Tag has undeniable charm. Later, Carol gives Greer a bracelet, but Greer struggles to recall the exchange. In her office, she finds the receipt and sighs. Nearly unraveling, Benji interrupts, frustrated with how she treated Amelia earlier. Greer insists she's only protecting him, expecting Amelia to show the same devotion he gives her. Benji argues that Amelia is simply her own person, but Greer insists she should try harder to fit in like she herself once did, learning new skills, reading certain books, and reshaping her image to suit her husband's family. With no common ground, Benji quietly walks out. Enid calls Greer to confirm plans for the coming week. The book launch. She reminds her of the careful timing, making it coincide with her son's wedding and branding it the perfect couple. But Greer isn't in the mood, especially for that label. Her tone grows heavy, and though she doesn't hang up abruptly, she ends the call. Broderick. The phone is ringing next, but she ignores it. Meanwhile, Amelia and Tag drive to the dockyard to pick up her parents for the wedding. On the way, Amelia tells him about her mom's cancer and how sensitive she can be, so he understands. They meet Bruce and Karen Sachs, exchange pleasantries, and head back to the Winbury house. The family welcomes them warmly, cheering them up and taking a group photo. notably without Amelia. Just then, Merritt, the maid of honor, arrives with Shooter, the best man she claims to have met at the taxi stand. By the beach house, Merritt takes photos and urges Shooter to join her. She also snaps some with Will, who's fresh from a breakup. She asks to tag him on social media, and he agrees, lingering nearby like a man nursing a crush, until Shooter calls him away. Later, Amelia and Merritt sit poolside, venting about Mrs. Winbury, before shifting to Amelia's deeper worries. Amelia admits she doesn't feel as in love with Benji as she should. It's not Greer's fault, she says. She just expected butterflies, the urge to touch him constantly, and the ache when he's away. But she doesn't feel that. Merritt brushes it off as cold feet, and tells her to do whatever feels right, though Amelia insists she can't walk away with the wedding so close. That night, Bruce tucks Karen into bed, then leaves. As soon as he's gone, Karen rises and takes medication from a different part of the bag, hiding it as if it were a secret. Elsewhere, Amelia stands by the window in lipstick, gazing out at the pool. Benji enters with a painting he's done of her, which she adores. She confesses that the smell of paint on him excites her, and soon they're kissing passionately, clothes tumbling until they're down to underwear. Amelia climbs onto the bed, first turning her back for him, then turning to kiss him. But suddenly she pulls away, retreating into herself. Benji, confused, asks why. She tells him he deserves more than she can give, but doesn't explain further. To clear her head, Amelia goes running along the beach. At the same time, a few guests share their doubts about her, how she only met Benji a year ago, and how they're unsure about her place in the family. At the station, tension flares between the detective and the deputy when she admits she doesn't even know what an oyster shuck is, the weapon found at the crime scene. At the rehearsal dinner, Merritt gives a toast about Amelia, praising her loyalty. Benji follows with his story, how he met her at the zoo where she worked, how he kept visiting until she agreed to go out with him, and how her story of penguins, who mate for life, convinced him she was the one. Meanwhile, Thomas had earlier asked his father for a loan and been refused. Abby later reminds him why she needs it, slipping in a deadline. Frustrated, Thomas vents to Benji and Shooter, saying all the women in their lives are only after money. Benji, sensing his frustration, doesn't take offense and instead advises him to swim it off. The next morning, Amelia keeps her usual habit of looking out the window, but this time something unusual catches her eye. She races outside and finds the lifeless body of her bridesmaid on the shore. Overcome with grief, she collapses into loud, heartbroken sobs. Amelia is having her wound nursed by medical personnel, but she keeps muttering that it's all her fault. She has flashes of Merritt saying Amelia's the only family she can't afford to lose. Still in a flash, the two ladies argue, with the late woman Merritt apologizing for not revealing a fact earlier than she should have. The officers are at the scene when Chief Dan arrives with news that they found water in Merritt's lungs, a deep gash on her foot, and bruises on both wrists. They find her phone and a man's jacket there, but with these, they still have no lead. Abby enters the kitchen and cleans a glass when Detective Nikki enters and asks her questions about the late woman, Merritt. The pregnant lady, Abby, is a bit nervous but states that she met Merritt even before the wedding, and one thing she's known about her is that she's quite lively and likes to party. But Abby has a way of countering the detective's statements with somewhat unnecessary sarcasm, making the officer want to stick to asking straightforward questions instead. She says there was a norm in the house where people didn't sleep on time and used the bar a lot. Before the detective leaves, Abby shares her sentiments that Merritt did know how to connect with many men, and this might be instrumental to the case. The Nantucket police are all over the house, and Thomas is trying to fix things and create a serene environment, attempting to turn wedding vendors away and asking the police to be more civil, especially with how their cars are parked. He expects them to treat his family with respect, considering their contributions to the town, but the officer wouldn't budge, stating that there are processes that must be followed in these cases, so the angry man storms out. A few people in the interrogation room have a thing or two to say about Thomas, and the wedding planner in particular thinks Thomas is quite extra. They're rearranging the wedding gifts and taking them out of sight, with tags suggesting they send the wedding cake away since no occasion will be taking place. The patriarch just wants the stuff gone. Amelia returns with Benji, and as she alights, she flashes back to an argument with the deceased, Merritt, where she bitterly complained about Merritt doing something she shouldn't have, saw the bracelet in Merritt's hand and yelled at her, reminding her that the man is her father-in-law-to-be. She enters the house and Tag welcomes them, and in a jiffy, other family members welcome her in and warm her with hugs, even Greer. Tag promises to handle whatever she needs, but she doesn't wait to hear him out, walking off to meet her parents. She's lying between them and sobbing until her father leaves, but only after telling her to tone it down a little, since Karen had taken strong meds that knock her out. She still tells her mom about the big fight the previous day, and how sad it is that she has no chance to apologize to her friend. The two lead officers are in one of the Winburys' home offices when Tag walks in with a glass, handing one to Dan, who accepts it. But the lady officer, Nikki, declines. Tag tries to feel comfortable, but he's told not to, so he doesn't disturb the possible crime scene, and he gets a bit upset. He doesn't think there's a need for all the heavy scrutiny and show going on in his compound, since it is clearly a case of accidental drowning after the deceased had too many blackberry mojitos. The detective doesn't mind taking this down as a statement, but more importantly, she says she's only exhausting all possible causes of the drowning. Maybe Merritt even had a thing with one of the guests, and as they went by the river, the guest probably wanted to hit, and she disagreed, making him strangle her, and then drag her to the river to make it look like an accident. Tag is taken aback by such a story, asking if she was really strangled, but they calm him down, saying that it was just a fictional story. After Tag awkwardly asks Dan about his daughter, even missing her name, he leaves, and the officers continue their job, more convinced that they'll find something. Amelia walks in on the rest of the House members, except Shooter, having a meeting about issuing a statement on Merritt's demise, attributing it to suicide. She wonders why she wasn't called in for the meeting before expressing her displeasure about statements about her friend that aren't true. Knowing her friend and the things she hoped to do, she believes Merritt would never end her life, but they all try to make her understand the importance of controlling the narrative with such statements, especially given the kind of career Greer has. Detective Nikki approaches Dan to discuss how he's handling the case, going soft and overly friendly. He advises her to let him do his thing. Knowing these people, it's only wise to let them feel they're in control, because once they feel they're being victimized, they'll deploy all tools at their disposal, money and top lawyers, and jeopardize the case. He just wants her to trust him so they can crack it well. Amelia's in her room watching videos of her friend, and sobbing when Benji comes in with a form, an NDA, asking her to please sign it at her mom's request. She doesn't think it makes sense, but he explains that with her mom being a public figure, she does this all the time to avoid drama based on past experiences. So Amelia signs it, and Benji leaves. Benji meets his friend Shooter, and they encourage each other, but the exchange is awkward, with Shooter feeling jittery. After Benji leaves, Shooter makes a call to someone, leaving a message for them to get back ASAP, then picks up his passport in a coy manner and leaves. While the officers are reviewing details of what happened at the house, a call comes in from forensics, telling Detective Nikki that there were 2 prints on the deceased's phone, and one belongs to Shooter. Officer Carl arrives at the compound and finds Shooter's room empty, so he calls it in. Meanwhile, Shooter is fleeing the island, having gained access to the ferry, but the police swoop in immediately, and there's a hot pursuit by boat. He's caught and taken away. Isabel is moaning heavily, and after being satisfied, Thomas pops out from under the duvet. He's fallen head over heels for her and wants to make their relationship official, but she says he shouldn't attach such emotions to adultery. For Thomas, he's just sad that no one really rates him. Not his family, not his clients. He's down a bit because his dad wouldn't even give him a loan, and Isabel reckons that the man isn't very generous, except in bed. Roger, in talking with the officers, describes the older Winbury's marriage as a matrimony of convenience, at least as it concerns Tag. Abby is preparing to leave the island, but Thomas shows up and stops her, citing police orders, but she's already settled that with them. He finds ways to stop her, but she's hell-bent on leaving, even asking him to help out. Greer is sitting in a corner when her husband shows up with a tray of drinks. He tries to lighten the mood, but she'd rather focus on work. They have a brief exchange, with her telling him to clean the place up, as she's been mopping up his mess all day. Tag calls Amelia into the office to have a chat with her, but she's not ready for any conversation, even though he tries to make her comfortable with his words. Later that evening, Amelia arrives at the station quietly and meets with the officers, revealing the affair between her late friend Merritt and Tag, and learning that her friend was possibly manhandled until she perished. Merritt was even pregnant, and during their altercation, Amelia was so livid that she didn't listen to her friend share everything. Greer is having a midnight coffee and remembering the moment Merritt arrived at the mansion when she noticed the bracelet on the lady's hand, sparking her suspicions. Her voice can be heard in the background, screaming at her husband. A year ago, at a party that involved everyone, Merritt meets Tag for the first time in a corner, and the two get talking, exchanging pleasantries, making introductions, and sharing a blunt. While they're on that, Amelia sees them from the party ground but keeps to herself. Back at the interrogation room, Amelia says she only knew that her friend was sleeping with Tag the night she passed on, and when they ask about the possibility of Merritt having another man, probably someone else responsible for the pregnancy, Amelia denies it. Knowing her friend, Merritt wouldn't easily give her body to just any man unless she really loved him. And this is in stark contrast with the notion everyone has about her. This is the reason she's at the station. Tag's looking for an item when Amelia returns, and the two just stare at each other without saying a word until Benji comes. She says she just took a walk, and while Benji takes her inside to get some rest, the father closes his office door. Benji is fast asleep when his wife gets up to snoop around, beginning from Tag's office. And the minute she steps out, she is face to face with Greer, and this startles her. She says she's thirsty, but Greer thinks her excuse doesn't fly, as she has what could quench her thirst right beside her bed. The older woman warns her to desist from entering that office, even though she wants her to be comfortable around, mentioning Benji's importance to her. Amelia has heard and promises to do better, then leaves. It's morning, and Greer prepares everyone for the coming events. Her book launch that she won't be shifting because it will invite prying eyes to them since she'd have to make every guest at the launch cancel. And then, the family photo for later that day. In all these, Amelia behaves awkwardly, saying few words and occasionally staring at Tag. The shooter is nowhere to be found, but they make a case for him that he's probably sleeping. Meanwhile, he's at the station, in a waiting room screaming that he wants a lawyer. Will drives all the way to Dan's house, and seeing the man himself is home, he scales through the window, meeting Chloe. She says she hasn't told anyone what she knows the moment he asks, but the police chief overhears the conversation and bursts in. He's angry at the young boy for using the window, reminding him that his dad might be rich and influential but doesn't own his home. They're at the party, with Chloe serving drinks when Will asks her to join him in his secret hideout, and she does. She carries a jug of mojito. They're chilling when the boy notices Merritt giggling from afar, and this intrigues him as he goes closer to her. Later that evening, he returns sobbing, with a bloodied hand that Chloe helps him tend to. At the interrogation room, Abby reckons that Will used to be a sweet little boy when he was younger, but now, he's just a weird teenager, who locks himself in the room all the time, probably wanking. Abby and Amelia are by the pool cooling off, but Amelia isn't very interested in the things Abby has to say, until she advises her to stay away from meddling in things when something bad happens, telling her to totally avoid Greer in situations like this or risk her wrath. She was made to sign an NDA the first time she got introduced to the family, during the May incident. May was Will's French tutor for one summer, but suddenly she was nowhere to be found. Will almost never recovered from it, and it threw the whole house off balance a little bit. The pregnant lady wonders why Benji never mentioned it to her, as he was very cordial with May. Amelia meets Benji inside and brings up the May incident, and while he wonders how she knows, he says it's been years, hence why he didn't see the need to tell her about it. But what he knows is that May just left without saying goodbye, and they have never heard from her since then. She brings up the NDA matter, but Benji quickly shuts it down, telling her to let his mom handle things the way she deems and has always done. The older Winbury couple is having an interview with a lady from People's Magazine, who asks a question that Greer replies to. She says what keeps them going is the fact that they quickly stand up for each other and have each other's back when one has made a mistake. This wouldn't apply to everyone, but she reckons the family is closely knit, working as a team. The couple talks about their bond that helps them have the same intuition at times, even helping each other finish sentences. Tag has a lot to say about their marriage, partly attributing their marital success to a healthy sex life, and Greer goes into shy mode, but the man continues talking, mentioning her best attributes that have contributed to her success, like her entering work mode the minute she wakes and going the whole day like that but still doing her wifely duties. Tag makes the interview funny, as the interviewer laughs all the way. The questions make her hint about her family that she never talks about, and as it almost gets awkward, it starts raining, and everyone takes cover inside. Greer scolds her husband for the unnecessary romantic gestures he was showing outside, asking him where all that came from. She also says he went overboard and calls him out for likening her to a horse. Tag is fed up, as he can't understand why she picks at him for these things. He's tired of the insane routine, keeping up with the lies, and asking her why she doesn't even think of escaping the hassle and the stress that comes with keeping up with who she is and wants to portray. Maybe even traveling out, just the two of them, having fun in a different environment. He says all he ever wants is her, but she thinks Tag is just guilty about something he did, even landing a slap on his cheek. She can't resist him when he pulls her close and begins kissing her, but pulls away after a few seconds, telling him to get dressed for the family photo shoot, and then walks out. She meets Amelia in the lobby and asks her why she isn't dressed for the photo shoot. also asking if she doesn't want to be a part of it, and the young lady confirms she'd love to be excused. Greer thinks her decision doesn't prove that she loves Benji and wants to participate in the Winbury family activities, but Amelia doubles down, saying she has a way of showing love, and it's different from what Greer probably thinks. She wonders if Greer's referencing how Tag loves her, but as far as Greer knows, Tag would do anything for her. She tells the bride-to-be to go wear something decent for the shoot. The police check for possible evidence on Merritt's phone and find a number with repeated calls that weren't answered. They check voice messages and find Benji's voice, telling the late girl to keep things under wraps and not let the cat out of the bag until after the wedding. He begs that she not reveal something that would hurt Amelia, and also promises to keep things cool, no weird moves. Before the photo shoot, Amelia snoops around Benji's room and sees pictures of her late friend. She's almost teary, but the Winburys are waiting, so Benji calls out to her, making her drop the pictures and head to the sitting room to join them. Amelia manages to force a smile, and after that session, Greer suggests Karen and Bruce join them, and while they first object, they join in the shoot, including Isabel, but Greer still wants Shooter to be available. Gosia and Abby talk about Shooter's relationship with Greer and their affair, that even though the older woman refers to him as a son, the relationship is a bit weird, much more than a mother-son relationship. Detective Nikki visits Dan, and they talk about the Winburys, how their money is still in a trust fund, how Greer has to churn out books to keep them going, and how each of them acts weirdly. At the family dinner, everyone's interacting, but that all stops when Amelia asks Greer why she makes everyone sign an NDA. As they try to shut her up, she then asks what happened to May. And all of a sudden, Thomas backs her up, firing the question at the parents. They try to shut them up, but Thomas spills that his dad had an affair with the French tutor, and in a bid to silence her after she tried to take her own life, they settled her financially and sent her away, never to show her face. Will is devastated and storms out cursing. Tag plays it cool, but Greer screams at him to go talk to his son, while Benji assures his fiancée that he had no idea about the May thing. More results come in, and while they confirm Merritt's pregnancy, the blood on the knife and around the scene is that of the deceased and Will. Will sets up a small boat to run off, and even though Chloe begs him to stay back, he refuses. Everyone's looking for him, Amelia too, but she gets to Will's secret place and finds the bracelet hidden there. Then she takes it and hands it over to the detective, stating what she knows about it. At the station, Amelia can't hold back her thoughts that everyone in the family could be complicit. She points out that it makes no sense for everyone to be asked to sign an NDA, and the detective notes this down. She adds that she wouldn't be surprised if her husband-to-be was involved too, since he keeps defending the NDA. The officer brushes it off, saying most families would do the same. News then arrives that the teenagers have been found by the Coast Guard and are at the hospital for a quick checkup, which brings visible relief to everyone, especially Greer. The officer presses Amelia for more information about her friend, but she insists she's already told them everything. He shifts focus to Shooter, asking what she thinks of him and whether his earlier escape attempt might be connected. Amelia stutters and drifts into a memory. She recalls boarding the PJ and meeting Shooter, who was polite and even offered to take her coat while explaining why Benji was late. He said he was sure he'd seen her before, though she denied it, even as her expression betrayed her. At the beach house, while waiting for Benji, Shooter gave her a tour and took her down to the shore. He told her how he first came to Nantucket at 14, after losing his mother, thanks to Benji's generosity. Suddenly he stripped down and ran into the freezing water, daring her to join. At first she resisted, but eventually she gave in, and the two played together in the waves. Back in the interrogation room, Amelia doesn't share any of this. Instead, she tells the officer to ask Shooter directly. Nikki cuts in, pointing out that Shooter has powerful connections who could easily bail him out, making such questions pointless. At the hospital, Dan storms into Will's ward, furious, and warns him never to endanger his daughter's life again. Will nods apologetically. Dan softens, then asks about the bracelet. Will hesitates, saying he doesn't want anyone hurt, but Dan pushes until he finally reveals what he saw the day Merritt died. He explains that, while with Chloe at his secret spot, he witnessed Merritt telling his father she was pregnant, and his father seemed glad. Later Will rushed to Merritt, telling her that his dad would never leave Greer. He offered financial support once his trust fund arrived, but Merritt insisted money wasn't her concern. That evening, he saw her crying as she walked by the beach and dropped the bracelet, which he later picked up. The cut on his hand, he says, was just an accident, something Chloe could confirm. He adds that he preferred his mother remain oblivious, and he is certain she knew nothing. When Will returns home, the family confronts him for putting Chloe in danger, and demands to know what questions he was asked. He replies that it was only about the boat and his intentions. Suddenly the home phone rings. It's Broderick, the man who's been calling Greer nonstop. Abby, instead of keeping it quiet, loudly announces who's calling, catching Tag's attention. Greer quickly denies knowing him and tells Abby to say not to call back. Meanwhile, Amelia drives to Shooter's place, demanding to know why he tried to flee the island. He claims he panicked. She presses him about the family's strangeness and asks if Benji is involved. Shooter is taken aback, prompting Amelia to reveal she saw Merritt's pictures in Benji's room. Shooter defends his friend, insisting Benji loves her and would never hurt her. Back home, Amelia confronts Benji about the photos. He admits Merritt had given them to him to paint as a surprise, but after her death he hid them to avoid suspicion. When Amelia asks when he learned of the affair, he confesses he had tried to warn Merritt to stop, leaving voicemails she never answered until the pregnancy came up. He admits he hates his father's behavior but swears he's nothing like him. Amelia and Benji embrace, and he promises never to keep secrets again. Later, Amelia and Shooter share wine at the house. Shooter again insists he's seen her somewhere before, but she stays silent until Benji walks in, abruptly ending the moment. Walking down the beach, Benji vents to Shooter about his father's messes, his endless affairs, and the fact he'll never leave Greer because he can't afford to. At the house, Amelia sits with her parents, who speak warmly about Merritt and her closeness to Amelia. Karen advises her not to rush into the wedding so soon after everything, urging her to take her time. Meanwhile, Tag barges into Greer's office, disrupting her work. He professes his love and begs for them to rekindle their relationship, but she is exhausted by his behavior. He even suggests she yell at or hit him if it helps. She nearly does, but holds back. Despite her irritation, he leans in, kissing her neck, and though she resists at first, she eventually gives in. The encounter grows more intense until he takes her from behind, and Greer moans in surrender. Greer recalls once warning Merritt not to trust Tag, telling her she would only end up like the rest of his women. Later, Abby brought them drinks, but Merritt refused hers, quietly raising Greer's suspicions. Sometime after, Greer meets Dan in a pub, where he's studying Merritt's toxicology report. She hands him the bracelet receipt from Tag, determined to ensure justice is served. Police soon arrive at Tag's home to bring him in for questioning. He goes without protest. Meanwhile, Amelia remembers the time she walked in on Shooter bathing at the pool house. Now, facing him again, she admits she's been unfair to him. She says she can't keep this up any longer. When Shooter asks what she really wants, she says she wants to leave. He kisses her, and she doesn't resist until Benji walks in. Enraged, he punches the wall in frustration. Amelia wakes up and heads to the kitchen but encounters Greer, who mentions that her husband is at the station, and she's certain it's for a good reason, even though it's her book launch day. Amelia doesn't think that, given what happened the previous night, Benji wouldn't want her in the same space, but Greer, smiling oddly, says everyone must show up to avoid raising suspicion. As she wants the day to focus solely on her book, Amelia leaves, accidentally knocking some items to the floor. Tag is at the station but flashes back to when he learned of Merritt's pregnancy, reacting with joy, which surprises her. At the station, the officers begin questioning, and Tag shares all he knows. They ask why his kayak, which is never left out, was outside that night, suggesting he might be involved in the lady's demise, but he claims he was just overwhelmed by wedding preparations. Detective Nikki asks tough questions that Tag takes offense to, threatening to call his lawyer if they continue down that path. He insists he has nothing to hide, which is why he hasn't called an attorney, and urges them to tread carefully. Amelia visits Abby's place, and the two discuss the late friend while she packs up. The pregnant Abby feels bad for Amelia, noting that she must have been really very close with the deceased. Amelia, who was supposed to leave that day, stays due to Greer's request, so Abby promises to support her throughout the party, and the grieving Amelia thanks her. It's already time for the book launch party, and Greer is greeting guests when the event planner arrives with a standee of Tag, saying he's been calling and texting him to at least send a video, but to no avail. Greer dislikes the idea, so he covers it back up and repeats that he's to tell anyone who asks that Tag is unavailable for the day. Simple. Will tries to arrange a hangout with Chloe, but after the boat incident she's been grounded and can't make such a move. Abby and Amelia walk in looking gorgeous. Amelia spots Benji from afar, and he glances her way, but they ignore each other. Shooter is at the other end, minding his business, but looks toward the ladies, and Abby can't keep quiet, absolving Amelia of blame for her actions. She says it'd be hard for anyone since Shooter is rich. Amelia is surprised, expecting Abby to cite his handsomeness. Besides, she didn't even know he was rich. Abby says he's extremely wealthy and references that he had bodyguards in school. She thinks he's from the Middle East due to his wealth, contrasting Amelia's belief that he's from India. Isabel approaches Benji and downplays what he saw, suggesting he use it as a chance for great apology sex from his fiancé. She claims an affair keeps the heart and sexual organ in check, but this advice is alien to Benji, who sips his drink and ponders her perspective. At the station, Tag stands by his earlier statements, denying any role in the late girl's demise, and saying he left the night crew to go to bed just past 1 a.m. Even when the officers press him, warning about the consequences of withholding information that could help the case, he smiles, implying he shared all he knows. When the officers leave, he recalls that night. Everyone leaves the table past midnight. But Tag heads to the beachside, where Merritt meets him, demanding to know his true thoughts about the pregnancy. He doesn't say anything substantial, but she senses he'd want her to abort, which makes her emotional and teary. She rushes into the water angrily, and he follows, holding her to prevent her from drowning. Back at the station, he alerts the officers to correct a lie he told from the start, hoping to clear himself. He admits he went to bed at 2:30 a.m., an hour later than he previously stated, and offers his wristwatch, which tracks his heartbeat and other activities, hoping its data will confirm he went to bed at the time he now claims. Additionally, the officers confirmed that the substance found in Merritt's system entered only a few hours before her body was found, supporting the wristwatch data and suggesting he's not at fault. He swears he couldn't have taken anyone's life. At the book launch, Isabel meets the grieving Amelia and, after offering condolences, remarks on how sweet the late friend was, but notes she was distressed that night, prompting a recollection. The two met by the beachside after a brief encounter earlier. As they chat, Isabel knows Merritt's troubles involve Tag, so she offers advice. While they clink glasses in a toast, the glasses break, ending the night for both. Shooter approaches his friend to apologize, but Benji, already drunk, scolds him and punches him in the stomach. When the pained Shooter leaves, Amelia notices Benji's drunken state and helps him, taking him away from public view to avoid embarrassing himself and his mom. In the kitchen, Benji wants to drink more, but Amelia tries to stop him, offering water instead. He still loves and adores her, and as they stare at each other, alone in the kitchen, they begin to kiss. Benji subtly pins her against a surface as they remove their underwear. He lifts her, suspending her against the surface, and soon he's inside her. Greer takes the stage to discuss her book, Dash and Dolly, when Tag enters, noticing his covered standee in a corner. He's staggering slightly but takes a few sips, and both he and Greer notice someone moving awkwardly. It's Broderick, maneuvering toward the front. Greer spots him and calls Roger to handle it. Security locates him, but before they escort him out, he says a few meaningless words, hurls the book toward her, and yells that she should stop ignoring him. Greer makes light of the situation and tries to continue, but Tag appears, surprising everyone, with some calling him Dash, like the book's character. He climbs the stage, showers praise on her, grabs the microphone, and continues his speech. He begins by saying people view them as the perfect couple, but shatters that illusion, stating they're far from perfect and not like she portrays in her books, sparking a negative reaction from the audience. Despite Greer's attempts to stop him, he persists, accusing her of trying to frame him for murder and questioning if that's what perfect couples do. Amid this, he vows never to leave her, singing a song to that effect and dancing. Greer forces a smile, encouraging guests to dance along. He steps down from the podium, having made his point, but trips and falls, causing all the party balloons to float everywhere. The data from Tag's phone is out, and Nikki has a strong hunch he's telling the truth. While previous day's data shows 2 sleepers in the room, that night shows only 1, leading to another clue. That night, Shooter meets Amelia by the beach, but she's upset with him for not being honest about his wealth, making it seem like they're similar. He doesn't understand her frustration. She reveals she had sex with the drunk Benji at the party, adding that it's good they didn't do anything foolish, implying whatever they considered is over. Greer meets Dan in a pub, and to his surprise, she offers to help. She speaks in vague terms about possible case theories, but Dan isn't afraid to suggest she might be doing this to avoid suspicion. He gets a call from the station, revealing Broderick's ties to the Turkish mafia and deliveries. They also note Broderick kept calling Greer from the night Merritt passed without a response, and then the big reveal: Shooter wired $300,000 to him earlier. It's the night of the murder. Greer keeps staring at Merritt from her room and then leaves. A minute later, Merritt is saying hi to someone. Greer is watching the fiasco all over again and plotting ways to save the situation, so she puts a call through to Enid for a round table with Tag. She enters the kitchen and meets the estranged couple, asking Benji to excuse them as she has a chat with the lady. The older lady wants to know if Merritt abused before her demise, since a high dose of barbiturates was found in her system. But of course, Amelia says she doesn't use any substances. Just then, the police come in to take Greer in for questioning, and they leave with a few of her items, including her laptop. Will thinks his dad should do something, but the man is undeterred, asking him to go prepare for his race, while everyone else suggests calling in Greer's PR team and an attorney. At the station, the officers present their findings to Greer, telling her they have every reason to believe she contacted Broderick to tidy up the mess Merritt was about to make, and then made Shooter pay the man, leveraging his diplomatic immunity. They want her to admit it with her own mouth to make everything easier for everyone, but she shrugs it off, saying she barely knows Broderick, and she and Shooter have nothing to do with anyone's demise. Abby had called Thomas earlier to inform him of the happenings at the house. Thomas, who's having a good time with Isabel, where the lady later reminds him that he must find a way to pay her back, has to return home. At the mansion, reporters are all over, seeking to know what happened, but no one's ready to talk. Not Tag, not Benji, not Thomas, who actually kicks at them. The Winberrys leave, but Abby snaps at her husband, revealing her knowledge of his affair with Isabel. He denies it and goes after her, but she's not having any of that. Greer is shown a call log from her phone to Broderick's hotel room line at past 3 a.m., though she earlier said she slept 2 hours before then. She clears her throat and confesses that she's known Broderick for a long time, and the wire from Shooter was just a loan she'd pay back. The officers question the nature of her ties with Shooter for him to commit such a huge amount to her if there's no undertone, but she smiles and says the boy's like a son to her, which Nikki mocks. Shooter's dad visits him, and he reveals that he gave Greer the money as a loan, seeing them as family, but didn't ask why it was transferred to someone. Amelia's calls keep coming in, so he finally answers, and after apologizing for everything, she confirms she's the lady he knew from the B train, the one he always talked about. Enid and her team meet Tag in his office and learn that Greer was taken in, so they shift their discussion to Tag's shocking revelation about his marriage at the book launch, but he doesn't quite recall, so the team gives him time to rest. Carl enters the room with Broderick, who's made to sit beside Greer, but he's already scornful and doesn't care about her. He calls the $300,000 transferred to him a gift, and insists he hasn't done anything wrong. The officers want to know why such an amount was transferred to him, and just then, Carl comes in with news that Shooter has arrived with his lawyer. This irks Greer, who reiterates that Shooter has no idea what the loan was for, then decides to reveal the truth. Broderick is her brother, whose gambling addiction put him in debt. Hence, she had Shooter wire him the money to pay it off. The officers are surprised to hear this, as it significantly alters their speculations about the murder. Hearing that Broderick is involved in a gang, though he calls it an organization, they press further to learn what happens in said organization, but he provides no substantial information. The officers let them leave, including Shooter, but as things stand, they're back to square one. Back at the mansion, Enid and her team are guiding the family through PR lessons, with Tag specifically rehearsing lines for the press, attributing his recent marital woes to a new alcohol addiction due to the stress from everything happening around him, and promising to seek rehab. Greer enters the house with her brother, and she doesn't bother with pleasantries, as she just wants to reveal all they've been hiding. First, she tells everyone who Broderick really is, and everyone is shocked to their core. She goes on to say that the story of her and Tag meeting at a gallery is a lie, as they actually met in a bar while she was working as an escort that her brother connected her with. Everyone's jaws drop at this revelation, but she says she's done with the fake life and cleaning up people's messes, hoping to live her life exactly as she wants. She tells Enid she'll have a book written about her life, and Tag doesn't feel good about it, muttering that she always has a book for everything. Karen discovers that a pill from her secret stash is missing, and since it's the same substance found in Merritt, she tells Bruce, who calls his daughter to share what they've noticed, and then involves the officers. Karen says the pills are a last resort for when she's tired of whatever's going on in her life, intending to take them to end it all. She only recently noticed one was missing but adds that one shouldn't be enough to end someone's life. Benji recalls that Thomas steals pills as a game, and with this, Amelia storms out to confront him, hitting him and accusing him of her friend's demise until the police arrive and respectfully take Thomas away. Thomas is at the station and admits he took the pill but doesn't view it as a crime, saying he just keeps them for fun. He confirms he knew Merritt was pregnant with his dad's child, and though he planned to scare her with a gun to push her to get rid of it, Isabel stopped him. He thinks Isabel murdered Merritt, and here's why. He owes Isabel $2.5 million and relies on the Winbury Trust Fund, which will be released when Will turns 18, to pay off the loan. Merritt's pregnancy threatened the fund because a new child would delay access for another 18 years. Thomas believes Isabel killed Merritt to ensure quicker access to the funds so she could get her money back. Isabel gives her account, but first scolds the officers for looking in the wrong places, confessing that at the time of the demise, she wasn't even at the premises, being with Thomas. The detective now has a lead. Thomas wasn't in bed with Abby that night, though she earlier stated her husband was with her. The detective recalls the maid's interview mentioning how badly behaved Gosia can be, and picks up on a glass she ordered her to wash that she refused. The detective also remembers walking in on a nervous Abby washing a glass. She thinks something was off with Abby that day. Abby comes to pick up Thomas, but as he's still inside, the detective has a brief chat with her, where she bashes Isabel and evades the question of whether Thomas slept in their bed that night. The detective senses something's fishy, but lets them leave. At the mansion, Thomas shares his thoughts about Isabel being behind Merritt's demise, and as they discuss the trust fund details, Greer watches Abby as if she's realized something. Just then, police swoop in and arrest Abby for the murder of Merritt. On that night, Abby notices Isabel and her husband, but is drawn to Merritt. She goes to her husband's cupboard, takes out some pills, grinds them, and pours them into a juice, then heads to the beachside and gives Merritt the glass, who drinks and thanks her. Abby makes them enter the pool, where she drowns her, pressing her head into the water until she gives up the ghost. Greer initiates a separation while she plans on heading to the city to continue her career, leaving Tag heartbroken. Amelia and her parents finally leave the island. Chloe and Will resume their friendship. Thomas gets a mild beating from Isabel for setting her up. Much later, Greer finds Amelia and hands her a book she's written about her. She says all the tantrums she threw back on the island were out of jealousy and that she's thought things through. She wants Amelia to read the book and, if she thinks it's okay, call her about possibly publishing it. The two smile at each other, with Amelia still quite surprised, before Greer leaves.